What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason, and there is a lot to talk about in Commanders World this week because the Commanders have finally hired an offensive coordinator, and oh boy, it was a home run hire. Let's just get right into it with the hiring because Eric Bieniemy is now the new assistant head coach and offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. I said it, it's a home run hire by Ron Rivera and that coaching staff. A couple weeks ago, I was convinced that it was either going to be Ken Zampese, the quarterback coach for Washington, or it was going to be Pat Shermer, the former head coach of the Giants, I believe, who was going to be our new offensive coordinator. But they proved me wrong, and in a big way too, because I am absolutely stoked for this hire. The duo between Eric Bieniemy and him teaching how to play football for Sam Howell, teaching him the new NFL ways, and basically possibly turning him into Patrick Mahomes. I know it's not really the same comparison there, but what Eric Bieniemy did for Patrick Mahomes in his development, hopefully he can do the same with Sam Howell because I am so excited for this move. A lot of people have been saying, why would Eric Bieniemy leave Kansas City, a place where he just won a Super Bowl, to go to the Washington Commanders of all teams on a lateral move? Well, it's not really a lateral move. I think people are forgetting that Eric Bieniemy is now the assistant head coach also at Washington. Which, what does this mean? I don't really know. Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera will have a press conference on Thursday, or their introductory press conference on Thursday at 11 a.m. So I'll definitely be tuned into that. But I don't know what assistant head coach really means yet. The reporters and the beat reporters there will probably be asking Ron Rivera what that does mean. But I'm still super excited for the move. It's not a lateral move at all. Eric Bieniemy really getting promoted into possibly being the new head coach of the Washington Commanders if Ron Rivera doesn't make it past next season. There are many offensive assistants for the Washington Commanders that aren't under contract for 2023. So it brings the question, who will Bieniemy bring in? I know our wide receivers coach was in consideration for the offensive coordinator role with the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona ended up going, or Jonathan Gannon ended up going a different direction. But also, we lost our special teams coordinator, our defensive backs coach on the defensive side. So, I mean, there's a lot of offensive assistants that will get changed this offseason. And Eric Bieniemy, especially on the offensive side of the football, it'll be interesting to see who he brings in. Will Ken Zampese stay, or will he want to have a new quarterback coach? Maybe bringing in someone from Kansas City as a coach, or maybe as a player like Mecole Hardman in free agency. So it's really going to be interesting to see if players or if coaches in Kansas City will follow Eric Bieniemy to Washington, because that's really going to set the tone for who Eric Bieniemy is. Because I will say, Eric Bieniemy, he's had so many head coaching interviews for like the last half decade, and he never really got the job, which is a little bit confusing because he's gotten so many interviews. So is there something that Bieniemy is hiding? Is there something that Andy Reid is hiding about Bieniemy? Because Andy Reid keeps on hyping up Bieniemy for a new position, possibly being a head coach, and Bieniemy never got one. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's something beneath the curtain or behind the curtain for Eric Bieniemy. Also, here's an update on the owner situation with the Washington Commanders. Dan Snyder, pretty much selling the team now. I think it's a pretty much given fact that he will sell the team at some point this offseason. I'd be very shocked if he didn't at this point. And according to Josh Cosman, Snyder's floor that he wants for the team is $6 billion. And right now, there are two top bidders, one of them being Josh Harris, the 76ers, and the New Jersey Devils owner. And there's also a mystery bidder who was yet to be named. That's also one of the highest bidders. Is that Bezos? I don't know. But both are struggling to make $6 billion offers without co-investors, which makes me think that the mystery bidder is probably not Jeff Bezos. So that'll be interesting to see. And according to Darren Hayes, he works at, I believe, NBC for Washington. Many bidding tours have been in the facility so far. A lot of the billionaires and stuff that want to buy the Washington Commanders have gotten tours of the facility, have gotten tours of FedEx Field. I know Josh Harris has. I know some other people have too. So it'll be interesting to see what they think of the facility, and will that influence their decision into making a higher offer or a lower offer based on the state of the facility? Because you got to think, will the new owner blow up the facility? Not literally, but will they like blow up the facility and build a new facility in terms of the practice facility with the bubble and everything, because it's very underwhelming right now. I pass it like every day. It's very underwhelming. There's one tiny building. It looks to be only one floor tall, but it's actually two floors because it's kind of on a hill. And then you have the big bubble with the indoor fields, and then you have three outdoor fields. So it's a little bit underwhelming. So you got to wonder if a new owner comes and buys the team, will they want to make a new facility and possibly a new facility somewhere else? And then you have the stadium situation too with FedEx Field. Will a new team or a new owner want to buy the team and change the stadium because the stadium lease ends, I believe, in 2027 or 2028. So that's coming to an end soon as well. So we'll see what happens there. At least four bidders so far have placed a bid to purchase the Washington Commanders. So yeah, that's the pretty much update on the new owners thing. It's not really that big of an update so far, but just some good numbers and stuff that some beat reporters have been reporting on, which I think were good to bring up here. All right, moving on to the big topic. If Eric Bieniemy wasn't the big topic here of this episode, here's another big topic. We're going to be doing mock drafts for like every week, I guess now, or every episode going up to the NFL draft. The only ones where we might not do it is when I start to do top prospects at each position. But we're probably going to be doing a mock draft, just going through different scenarios and stuff with what Washington could do with a 16th overall pick and throughout the entire draft, basically going through different scenarios for the rest of the offseason heading up to the draft. So I'm super excited about that. I already did the first one. This one is a no trade mock draft. I didn't want to do any trades. I wanted to keep it simple for the first one. And so with round one, with the 16th overall pick, I was looking at the board, guys like Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., Devin Witherspoon, all of them were off the board. And then guys like Michael Mayer, Brian Branch, Broderick Jones, Cam Smith, Trenton Simpson, Osiris Torrance, all of those guys were available. So I went ahead and selected Cam Smith, a cornerback out of South Carolina. He's a very athletic guy. He's kind of a little bit of a raw prospect, but I would probably go with Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., or Devin Witherspoon with the 16th overall pick if any of those three were available. Broderick Jones, he's a great offensive tackle, but he's a little bit undersized. I would want as a franchise offensive tackle, only 6'4", which is about the average height. But I like a guy a little bit taller than that to be a offensive tackle. So maybe like a guy, DeJuan Jones later on in the board. But Michael Mayer, a great tight end. I'm not sure how great he'll be in the NFL. One of the best tight end prospects we've seen since Kyle Pitts, but I'm not sure how much that will translate to the NFL. Brian Branch, we're pretty solid on safety. This guy could probably play nickel corner or be a great nickel corner in the NFL at some point, but I just don't think that's our biggest need right now. I already talked about Broderick Jones. Trenton Simpson, a linebacker out of Clemson. I haven't scouted him yet. I've heard good things, though. He could possibly be an option at 16. And then Osiris Torrance, a great run blocking offensive guard. I feel though we can get some more inside offensive linemen later on in the draft. So I went ahead and drafted Cam Smith, a guy who can truly be a cornerback one on a team, a starting cornerback, a true franchise cornerback on a team at his highest ceiling. So that's why I went with round one. In round two, I would usually go tight end here, but Darnell Washington and Dalton Kincaid, two of the guys that I think Eric Bieniemy would love to have in Washington as offensive weapons. Same with Michael Mayer, because look what he did with Travis Kelce. He might want a guy or a young tight end that he can develop and pretty much implement into this offensive scheme, but like he did with Travis Kelce. So I'm looking forward to see what he will do with that position because I don't think Logan Thomas will be the move there heading into 2023. I think there's a big chance that we're going to cut Logan Thomas before the 2023 season. So I went ahead and drafted John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota. This guy is a day one starter. All right. He is the best center prospect out of this entire class. And getting him in round two, where Washington stands, I don't know the exact pick number, but getting him in round two would be a steal and something that I would definitely run up to the podium and draft myself if Ron Rivera wasn't going to draft him for me because we need some inside offensive line help. I know we could have gone with Osiris Torrance as a guard and possibly play center in round one, but I went ahead and drafted a center who Chase Roulier is probably his career is going to come to an end pretty soon with two back-to-back season-ending leg injuries. And then Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner, I think I talked about it in last week's episode with Ryan Fowler, but both of those guys will probably not be on the team next season. So I went ahead and drafted John Michael Schmitz, who can play both center and guard. And then round three, this is the Sheriff compensatory pick because we're probably going to get a round three pick because we lost Brandon Sheriff last year. But this isn't the exact pick. So the pick that I had in this was the one that we would have had if we didn't trade for Carson Wentz, because our third round pick this year is part of the Carson Wentz deal because Carson Wentz didn't play 70% of the snaps this season. It went down to round three. But and about the same area, we're going to get a compensatory pick for Brandon Scherf. So I kind of just went with it. Again, the compensatory pick will probably be a little bit lower than this, probably 10, 15 picks lower. But I just went with it, act like it is, because guys like Jack Campbell, Jalen Jones, Sam Laporta, Andrew Voorhees, all these guys I considered with this third round pick. All these guys I could probably take with this third round pick. Andrew Voorhees, though, a guy that I'm a little bit unsure about. I haven't gotten yet a chance to scout him, but I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about him possibly being a day three pick. So I went ahead and drafted Sam Laporta, a tight end out of Iowa. We didn't get a tight end in round two with Darnell Washington and Dalton Kincaid off the board. And we didn't draft Michael Mayer in round one, even though he was on the board. So I went ahead and drafted Sam Laporta, a tight end out of Iowa, who I think could be the tight end one here in Washington if Eric Bieniemy likes him, and if Eric Bieniemy likes what he sees out of him in training camp and in his development. So that's the round three pick. In round four, with our round four pick, I went ahead and drafted Texas A&M cornerback Jalen Jones, as he was still on the board. I took him. There wasn't really anyone that I would rather take besides him in this case. Maybe a guy like Ventrell Miller, but I think that's a little bit of a reach, especially with we can get some linebacker depth later on in this draft, and we can also probably sign a linebacker in free agency. So I went ahead and took Jalen Jones, the second cornerback taken for us in this draft. With the fifth round pick, I selected Texas linebacker DeMarvin Overshone. I think this guy is a great linebacker. Round five, great value for him. A lot of running backs and wide receivers were available during this time, so a possible trade back spot because we are pretty much set at running back unless we want to draft a RB3 because we got Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson and then JD McKissick if he doesn't retire this offseason because of his injury. But I guess around RB3, but I wouldn't take an RB3 in the fifth round. So a possible trade back spot there. But I went ahead and taken DeMarvin Overshone, a linebacker out of Texas. And then here with the final three picks, we had two in the sixth round and one in the seventh round to cap it off. In the sixth round, I took Washington offensive tackle Jackson Kirkland with some offensive tackle depth there. And then Jackson State linebacker Aubrey Miller as well. So we double up on cornerback and we double up on linebacker in this draft. And with the final pick in round seven, I took Ricky Stromberg, the inside offensive lineman out of Arkansas. I don't really know much about him, but we also need some guard depth. And so hopefully he can be a solid backup guard for us because I feel like, but when we get to week 13, 14, 15 into that final stretch, we're on our like third guard of the season or we're on our third center of the season. So we can always use some depth there. So yeah, this mock draft addressed a lot of needs for Washington. Cornerback position, we drafted two of those. We got Jalen Jones and we got Cam Smith. And then linebacker, we got DeMarvin Overshone and Aubrey Miller. And then inside offensive line at guard, we got Ricky Stromberg. And then at center in the second round, we got John Michael Schmitz. But there are a lot of other positions that we need depth in going into the 2023 season if we do have this draft class, including quarterback. What are we going to do there? Are we going to bring back Taylor Heineke? Will Eric Bieniemy want to bring back Taylor Heineke at that point? Because, again, it's a new offensive coordinator. The only reason why Taylor Heineke was still on this team was because he knew the system very well. It's not like he was a great quarterback or a great starter or anything. It was just because he knew the scheme very well. But now with a new scheme coming in with Eric Bieniemy's offense, will Eric Bieniemy want to keep Taylor Heineke and re-sign him this upcoming offseason? The defensive line as well. We're getting back for Darius Mathis, the 2022 second-round pick who tore his ACL in week one of last season. But we're getting back him. It's going to be basically a rookie season for him. And then offensive line still. We need a lot more depth than just drafting Ricky Stromberg, Jackson Kirkland, and John Michael Schmitz because I feel like this offensive line needs a whole new rebuild, especially with a possible franchise quarterback or a possible quarterback that we're trying to develop in the backfield with Sam Howell. So we don't want him to get hurt. We need to completely rebuild this offensive line this offseason. I think this draft definitely starts it with John Michael Schmitz, Ricky Stromberg, and Jackson Kirkland, but we still need to sign some veterans and see what we need to do with Charles Leno, Andrew Norwell, and Trey Turner as well. All right, and moving on here, the DC Defenders are back. DC beat the Seattle Sea Dragons, led by Ben DiNucci, 22-18. The Seattle Sea Dragons were a stacked team coming into the XFL here. They got Ben DiNucci, they have Josh Gordon, a lot of guys that do have NFL experience, but DC was able to beat them, and that atmosphere at Audi Field was absolutely incredible. You had guys throwing lemons on the field. You had beer snakes trying to get made and then broken down again. The atmosphere, DC Defenders fans in the XFL are truly the most dedicated fan base in any team in the XFL and any fan base. So I think that that's great for the XFL, great for the DC Defenders. It got me asking some questions too. What can the XFL do? It has a lot of promise, especially if it partners with the NFL as a form of a NBA G League farm system type thing, which I think could be really cool if that were to happen. It would not be for another probably 5, 6 years, though, as the XFL would have to be a true league and show a lot of stability throughout many years. And it would also require probably expanding the draft to probably 10 rounds or maybe even a little bit more to build that second team, to build that minor league team. And I don't think the NFL needs more than one minor league, pretty much just one minor league. Like, you know how in the NBA, oh, sorry, not in the NBA, in the MLB, you have triple A, double A, high A, and single A. Plus, I think there's another one too, which is not great because if you're drafted in the first round, you're getting sent to single A or high A, and then you're not getting to the MLB for another 3, 4 years. I don't think the NFL needs to do that. Just add a second team that plays during the week, move Thursday night football to Friday night football, and then have these minor league teams play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and boom, there it is. Because these minor league teams, if you get drafted number one in the NFL draft, you're still going to be in the NFL from day one. Just look at like the NBA. You got Cade Cunningham when he was drafted first overall, or really any other player besides like Johnny Davis, any other lottery pick, pretty much besides Johnny Davis is from last draft is in the NBA right now. You only really need one minor league team that you can have. You can send your fifth, sixth, seventh, possibly eighth, ninth, and 10th round picks down to the minor league. You can get them some more reps, more practice, more starts, and then possibly elevate them to the NFL team come Sunday and stuff, which I think would be really cool. But also, I feel like this league would have to only start probably smaller than the NFL. Probably a 16 team XFL league would probably be good as a minor league, and then have two NFL teams or share one XFL team. So, for example, the DC Defenders, if that was the XFL team in the minor league, then the DC Defenders would be the minor league team for both the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens, which I think would be pretty cool because we would want one in the NFC and then one in the AFC too. It can't be both in the NFC because I think that'd be a little bit colluding and stuff. I just don't think that'd be a great idea. So you would need one XFL team that is shared by one AFC team and one NFC team. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But I think there's a lot of promise with this XFL, and especially even though it's only been 1 week, going back to 2020 and stuff, the atmosphere in some of these stadiums are incredible. All right, here, just a last little thing, a podcast schedule update. As you know, the podcast now coming out at Tuesday at 9 a.m. every week. So next week, I'm going to be previewing the NFL Scouting Combine as we get closer and closer to the Combine. I'm going to be talking about what I want to see from certain prospects and who I'm looking forward to see participate in the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. After that, I'm going to be starting to get into my ranking the top prospects at each position and eventually creating a big board for you guys as well. So that'll be leading up to the draft. And then after the draft, that's pretty much it for season 2 after the draft. I usually take a month off, month and a half off, pretty much all of June off, come back in late July, August when training camp gets to start back up. So that's pretty much the schedule for the rest of the season. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.